What is happening, everyone? Welcome back to the Cop Out podcast. And yeah, we are back with the stats show. Liverpool are 20 times Premier League champions and all that. But yeah, it's been long overdue to get Mike back on, Mike Reid from Opta. But yeah, nice one for jumping back on, lads. It's been a long time.
Yeah, couldn't not when we've won the league though. We had to fit it in somewhere. But yeah, it's sort of the pros and cons of winning the league. The cons is it makes me very busy, but then the pros are I don't mind. I don't care.
Yeah, you can be as busy as you need to be when you've got the backdrop of 20 league titles. And speaking of 20, we are selling. We have got a little offer on a new mug which we've gone in collaboration with Ped Designs. So if you have a little look there, you can see that. Yeah, Cop Out Podcast Champions mug bundle, £20 for a mug. You get some snazzy little coasters with it as well, as you can see there. There's like one with the Cop Out Podcast logo and one with the 20 champions on. Logo's on one side, champions 20 on the other. I'll get off my screen now because you can see it in all of its glory right here because I've got a little cup of tea in it. It might look pinker than it is on there, but trust me, it's not. It's nice and red. If you want one of them, if you want one of them in your life, the link's in the description. So get on it. And yeah, it's always good to have little bits, little trinkets like that when Liverpool win the league. I just buy loads of shit like that. Not like I'm calling the mug shit, by the way. I mean like shit, just like the stuff in general. I'm doing a shit sell here, so I'm going to move on, lad. But yeah, nice one for jumping on. I can't even remember the last time we jumped on, and it must have been a couple of months. It wasn't 2024, was it? Surely not.
Yeah, I'd be surprised if it was that long.
No,
I can't remember.
Yeah, well, we're here now, lads. We're here now. But yeah, 20 times champions. Like, yeah, how are you feeling about that? Because I'm sure, well, I think when we spoke early on the season, when we were talking about like plans for this season and what we're going to do and where we're going to finish, and we're like maybe top 4, top 3, nice little cup run. And here we are, league title a month ago. We've played a few games. We've lost nearly all of them, and we're all half pissed. We're playing mad teams. We're losing games, but who cares? And that's kind of every away. I mean, I've been gutted I haven't been able to go to any of these aways because that Brighton away looked just looked like a party from start to finish, didn't it?
Yeah, even with I don't think anyone was even bothered about the Brighton goals in that away, and like just didn't matter, resonate with them at all. But yeah, I remember with you saying at the start of the season how we can't be so harsh on Slot to say win the league first season, that's what we expect, because he's replacing one of the greatest managers in Liverpool and probably in football history, to be honest, in Klopp. Didn't sign anyone back years who, until the Brighton game, hadn't even started a league game this season. So pretty much the exact same team, no differences. And he's gone and done it. And I actually looked earlier this morning about Opta do the obviously percentage predictions, and they call them the supercomputer predictions. I hate the word supercomputer, so sorry. I know I work for Opta and I shouldn't say that, but what a terrible way to phrase it. But basically, the Opta predictions, and Opta gave Liverpool a 5% chance of winning the league at the start of the season, and here we are, won it with 4 games to go. So that tells you all you need to sort of know about how amazing it is, and I don't think any of us expected it, and that's why the fans are enjoying it so much, because coupled with the fact we couldn't enjoy the last one properly other than sitting in our own homes and drinking beer at home on your own to celebrate rather than getting out and actually celebrating. It's so different, and first time in my lifetime then I've got to celebrate a Liverpool league title, so you've got to make the most of it, and especially it sort of feels sweeter than it wasn't expected, because I think there's that pressure when you're expecting to win or expecting to at least challenge. I think you feel the pressure, don't you? Whereas this season it wasn't that pressure, and yet it happened. So yeah, absolutely buzzing.
Yeah, I think the mountain pressure from the previous one where we didn't get the cork didn't fly out of the champagne bottle because we couldn't allow it to, because of we couldn't have a parade or be in the ground and stuff. So it's going to be that times 100, because everyone's just obviously in wonderland in terms of like how happy they are and stuff. But like I said, there is a stats show, so we are going to get into some stats. But first, obviously, there's throughout the season, there's been like contract rumblings, and we didn't know what was going to happen with Van Dijk, Salah, Trent, and you kind of, the pitch was kind of coming into formation with like Salah and Van Dijk are gonna extend. Trent's probably not, but you were hoping that all three were going to. Obviously, we now know definitively that two of them are staying, and Trent is going because it's confirmed. But yeah, in terms of Trent and then potential, or like potential, not potential, concrete incomings, it looks like Jeremie Frimpong is going to be the next person through the door. And what are your thoughts on him? I love that the fact that we're being quite ruthless in that regard. Like Trent hasn't even got his bag packed yet, and we've got some fella ready to come in.
I saw someone say we're replacing him before his body's cold, which I thought was a funny way of saying it. Obviously, it's just really sad to see Alexander-Arnold leave this way. So I won't dwell on that too much because we don't want to be sort of too negative and having to sort of say negative things about a player who's been great for us over so many years. But in terms of Frimpong as a replacement, he ticks, the more I think about it, the more he ticks a lot of boxes. He's been sort of linked to us over the whole season, really, as there were rumours of Trent not signing. I think loads of right backs were named and he was always one there. But the thing I always did say was he isn't a right back, and we are going to look at sort of things in the future that sort of back that up, that he isn't really a right back, and he hasn't been for a long while, really, certainly not under Xabi Alonso. He's been effectively a right midfielder. So it's almost replacing the criticism of Trent over the years has been from fans of other clubs, not from Liverpool fans on the main, is he can't defend. And now we're replacing him with a guy who cares even less about defending than Trent Alexander-Arnold does. Like he's no interest in it. He's a very attack-minded player. But in terms of what I was saying about him ticking a lot of boxes, he's homegrown because of his time at Manchester City. He's only 24, so his peak years are well ahead of him, assuming he can stay injury-free and play regularly. He's got the legs that maybe he'll have Salah in front of him, and Salah at 32 now, you can't expect his legs to keep going, and he's not as quick as he was 5 years ago. I think we all agree with that. But Frimpong can basically sort of be his legs. Can you imagine having to try double up on Salah, which is what everyone does, but then Frimpong's overlapping him all day, all game, 90 minutes every game, going on the overlap. It suddenly becomes a lot harder to double up on Salah. So then you're freeing up Mo Salah to do what Mo Salah does. So I think it's a signing that, Trent and Salah have got the best out of each other over the years. I think Frimpong is a signing who is, let's get the most out of an aging Mo Salah. Let's get a player in who suits him more than anything. It allows Salah to sort of still be, he said this season, Slot doesn't ask him to do much defensive work. It allows him to really carry on not doing too much running because Frimpong can do it for him, basically. So I think, it does tick an awful lot of boxes. I'm quietly confident about that one.
Yeah, and I think in terms of his durability, like touch wood, he doesn't get injured that often as well. So that's something that I think he's played nearly 50 games over the last couple of seasons, which of course he's going to have to. Of course, we've got Bradley as well, so they can definitely interchange. But the fact that Bradley maybe is more injury prone, the fact that Frimpong is so durable gives us that we can rely on that a little bit. The fact that he can play as many games as we need him to, if Bradley for whatever reason picks up injuries or whatever. But I do like the comparison. We've gone from someone who doesn't want to defend but's got and pretty much no pace, but can play a ball 70 yards onto a stamp.
Yeah.
now we're going to replace him with someone who doesn't want to defend, but has got loads of pace and can get into those areas. So we're basically swapping a long range pass for someone who's pretty much absolutely rapid. So you're still getting up the ball progression is going to happen in a roundabout way, but it's happening by a different means, basically.
Yeah. Well, there's no replacing Trent on that. There is not another right back in or left back. There's no defender, frankly, in the world who can do what Alexander-Arnold can do. So there's no point even looking at that. And I'm glad the club aren't. There is no point even trying to do that. So I think it is looking at how can we do it a different way. And just on his durability, I have just quickly checked. Like in the last 3 seasons, he's played 48 games this season, 47 last season, 48 the season before.
Yeah.
So we're talking a minimum 47 games in the last 3 seasons. So yeah, he's pretty durable despite the fact that he is an energetic player. But yeah, his ball progression isn't through. Trent would do it through his passing. Frimpong will do it through his running, and he's progressing the ball that way through actually picking it up and actually running with it, or running without the ball and doing off the ball runs as well. So he's different in that respect. The one thing I would say is you do have to then think about how do you balance that defensively, because if you've got Frimpong who's going all out attack and Salah's not really tracking back, you do have to think about. Poor Konate must be thinking, oh my goodness me, well, I'm going to have a lot of work to do yet again. So yeah, that does have to be thought about as well. So we'll see what happens to the rest of the transfer window.
Yeah, because we're going to talk about a certain Kerkez as well, and he's not shy about running forward. So yeah, Ibu's hamstrings and Van Dijk's hamstrings will be maybe a touch worried going into this season with all the backpedaling they're going to have to do. But I think an upside to that is, if obviously we're going to talk about Kerkez in a sec, but both of those fullbacks are really quick. So in terms of recovery pace and getting back into position, they can make those margins smaller quicker than a Robbo and a Trent could. So I think that helps you as well. But we're going to talk about Frimpong a little bit, and you sent me over a very snazzy touch map, which I'm just going to bring up now. And like you said, he's not really a right back, as you can see there. They're Salah positions, aren't they? They're Salah positions, basically.
Well, Salah's about 23% in that same quadrant, that corner of the box sort of quadrant. That's about Salah's percentage in that area. So that shows just how attacking Frimpong is, really. And you look like we're talking 7 and 9% in the right hand side, where you'd expect your right back, a normal right back, to be. Now it's worth pointing out this season. Before Alonso came in, he did have a much higher percentage of his touches in those areas. For where the 7 and 9% are, he was in the teens there before Alonso came in. So that is worth pointing out, and maybe that's what Liverpool looked at as well, because they're probably thinking he's done it before, so there's no reason why we can't ask him to do it again or play similarly to that again. But yeah, when you actually look, I said earlier, he's basically a right midfielder, and that graphic shows it, because it shows 18%, 23%, and 15% of in the opposition half, third on the right wing. So well over half of his touches, to be honest, more like 3/4 of his touches are in that opposition half rather than in his own defensive half. That does also tell you that Bayer Leverkusen are a very attacking team as well, by the way, and you do have to bear that in mind. They're not going to be backs to the wall, 11 men behind the ball, where they are a team that's going to have a lot of the ball. So you also have to factor that into his touch zone map as well there. But that does show that. Just to emphasise the point that he isn't a right back, and certainly hasn't been this season, and certainly under Alonso anyway.
Yeah, the thing is, you can look at it 2 ways. You can think, oh, that's going to be trouble for centre halves and centre mids to be covering them, or you can think we have loads of the ball, like you said, similar to Leverkusen. So we're going to have so many outlets in those areas. In terms of Salah is double teamed most games, but if you've now got Frimpong overlapping or underlapping or doing whatever he wants in those areas with the pace that he's got, it's a frightening prospect for opposition teams. So, and obviously exciting for us. So very, very good stuff. Hopefully, I don't know when that's going to be getting over the line, but I imagine the next couple of days it looks pretty much nailed on, doesn't it? So he'll be next over the line, and number 30 apparently is going to be taken. But yeah, interesting definitely, because he looks very, very good. And I'm just looking forward to having pace. I know Bradley's rapid, but I'm looking forward to having pace in those areas, because it feels like everyone's got pace in those areas. The pace is what the Premier League is, so you need it pretty much. I mean, special exceptions, Trent is one of them. If your passing's that good, you can counterbalance it a little bit in that respect. But pace,
ball moves quicker than any player.
Yeah. But yeah, and then let's talk a little bit about Kerkez then, because I just like obviously a little backstory to this, or like what we think is going to happen in terms of other transfers. It looks like Keller looks like he might be going, because Mamadishvili's coming in. You imagine Tsimikas will go, and you keep Robbo, and then Kerkez will fight the position. There's other players which we'll get onto a bit later on in the show. But like say, Simicast does go, and looks like we have got a genuine interest in Kerkez from Bournemouth, who has shown this season how good he is. He's terrific. Not just going forward, but I think defensively he's good as well. Like obviously, you can improve in that respect, but we've got a similar touch map for him, which is a bit, I guess, more rounded. It's not as Frimpongy, if you like, in terms of just being a left winger. But those areas just kind of show. I think for me when I first seen it, it shows an engine because there's a nice balance of numbers there in a straight line right up and that touch line where you want them to be.
Yeah, and the thing with Bournemouth is they do play one of the most intense styles in the league at the minute, certainly under Iraola. He's done a fantastic job, to be fair. But yeah, so you can see he's in the double figures in the defensive zones where Frimpong was in single figures. So you can see he does do a bit more defensively than Frimpong, but ultimately we're talking 18% just inside the opposition half and another 18% in the middle third of the opposition half on that left wing. So most of his touches are still in the opposition's half there. So he is primarily a very attacking, very aggressive left back. So what we were saying earlier about counterbalancing it defensively, well, it looks like it's going to be both sides where we're going to have to think about that because, I mean, for so many years we've sort of trusted Van Dijk and Konate to do it. And if you remember the old Liverpool teams when Robertson and Alexander-Arnold were first together, they bombed on. Like they were as aggressive as you'll see from fullbacks. I think the difference was in that Liverpool team with Trent and Robbo was the midfield behind them was Fabinho, Henderson and Wijnaldum, who can all cover fullbacks. They can all shift across and play those sort of defensive positions. Gravenberch, McAllister and Szoboszlai, I don't think he's that kind of midfield. So you're either trusting Konate and Van Dijk to do a heck of a lot, and Van Dijk's 34 years old now, so as good as he is, he probably does need protecting a little bit more than he did, certainly 5 years ago. Whereas the midfield probably isn't as set to cover. Szoboszlai has the legs to do it. I'd say Gravenberch has the legs to do it. McAllister maybe not the biggest engine on him. He's good in a tackle, but it's certainly not his best use of him as a player. Is asking him to cover at left back or right back. I would not. That would be basically a waste of his talents as on the ball as a player. So I wouldn't be asking McAllister to do that personally. So it'd be interesting if maybe we do bring in midfielder. Maybe we bring in a sort of versatile centre-back who can play full-back. There's been links to Jorrel Hato, hasn't there, from Ajax, who's a sort of centre-back who can play left-back or vice versa, however you want to call it. He has been primarily left-back, I think, this season. But he can do both. So I just wonder if we might bring in someone like that who, when one goes on, we'll have a player like that who basically makes it a back three when they go forward, much in the way Fabinho or Henderson would have done in Klopp's Liverpool team back in the day. So, it'd be interesting what the plan is there, because if we are going two very aggressive fullbacks, it's very exciting going forward, but, you know, you do have to be sensible as well and sort of protect Van Dijk and Konate a little bit at least.
Yeah, and I think, like you said, Fabinho, Henderson and Wijnaldum. Like you said, Henderson would cover the right, Wijnaldum on the left, and then we were asking Fabinho to basically cover a vast amount of ground, really, and he could do it in those. And I think that's probably why he did fall off a cliff so soon, because he wasn't ever the quickest, but he was having to cover such a vast surface that he done such a good job. But it was obviously going to fuck him in the end, because it's so difficult to do. So whether, like you said, we do something similar with like bringing in like a centre back, left back, or you bring in another defensive midfielder who's very mobile and quick and can eat up the ground and put in the tackles like a Fabinho did. I think we've seen signs of that with like Gravenberch doing it, but I think he's better when he's not doing that, because I still want to see Gravenberch bomb forward, because when he gets past players, and I just think when he's running forward, he's so quick. I'm not as convinced when he's running back towards his own goal. I think that's the only thing.
Is he the kind of player who's going to trap midfield runners and things on his own? I think you're asking a lot of him when, again, his strengths are probably more on the ball than they are off the ball. So, again, it's about utilising the strengths of the players you've got. And that, I think that's probably a bit of a waste of Gravenberch as well as he's done this season. You know, he's been great in that position, mainly because he can receive a pass from Van Dijk, turn and run with it, and he's unbelievable at that. Nobody can sort of deal with that half turn he's got, and so yeah, it's sort of utilising the strengths of the players you have, which Slotter's proved he can do this season. So you do wonder what his plan is if we are signing 2 bomb-on wing-backs basically to play fullback. What is his idea to then utilise the squad in a different way? Because clearly, stylistically, it's different to this season because we've asked Robertson to sort of hold back a lot more this season. And even Trent doesn't make that many overlapping runs, I wouldn't say. He often will come inside. And I think Jamie Carragher has spoken about him Monday Night Football doing our fullbacks will sort of both underlap and end up being in almost striker positions, both of them at the same time. So it's not necessarily the bombing overlapping runs that you'd expect Kerkez and Frimpong to make. So it looks like he is going to tweak the style a bit. So it remains to be seen what the actual plan is. I'm sure he'll have had conversations with Richard Hughes and the powers that be above about what he wants from the team and what he expects. So we've got to trust them. It's only early doors. If Frimpong's the first signing, we don't know if Kerkez is going to come in. It's just early mentions of his name that Liverpool are interested. So it does remain to be seen, but you'll hope that come August, September, we'll have more of an idea.
Yeah, the outline emotion for me is excitement because we brought in Chiesa and we won the Premier League. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
So we're all like not the blind leading the blind, but we don't know what a slot transfer is. Do you know what I mean? Like we've talked numerous times about Klopp on these shows and on WhatsApp. You knew what you were getting with the Klopp sign, and you knew where they were going to fit. With Slot, we know his style now a bit more, but we're still unsure about like what he wants from like new players. Like because we know he's a master tactician because there was an interview recently with Salah and Gary Neville, and he was talking about like when did you realise Slot was like a genius basically.
Yeah.
He was like, just tactically in games, switching players around, like making sure that we can having the right answers for problems that like naturally come up in games, and I think that's something that he's so good at. But I'm so excited and interested to see who we get through the door. Obviously, Frimpong's going to be one of them, it looks like. And then, Kerkez, like you said, is in concrete. But those type of names are the ones we want to be linked with. And those are the type of players that, if we want to strike while iron's hot, if you like, and retain Premier League titles and go and challenge Trent for the Champions League next season, then we're going to have to make those type of signings. But it's exciting stuff. And you sent me over a little comparison image, which I'll bring up now because I think it's quite interesting. Let me just move that logo out the way because I think it's blocking a few numbers there.
It's just Jerem.
There we go. There we go. So that's obviously, like we said, Kerkez isn't complete by any means, but Frimpong pretty much is. So we know Trent's off. Robbo's probably going to stay. So those are kind of Robbo and Kerkez are hopefully going to be the two, and then Frimpong is replacing Trent. So those numbers kind of can paint a little bit of a picture, can't they?
Yeah. So I've done the left backs on the left and the right backs on the right to please our own OCD, Mick, and make it as easy as possible. Comparing Robertson and Kerkez on the left side there, and then Alexander-Arnold and Frimpong on the right. And so the top's just their basic details, games and goals. But then all the stats down, I've sort of done a comparison. Few attacking stats and then defensive stats as well for their per 90, what they do basically on the pitch. The thing that does stand out is how many more touches Robertson and Alexander-Arnold do have than Kerkez and Frimpong. They're both more involved, but that's almost more a symptom of the fact Liverpool will have more possession. So they're going to be more involved, and certainly Alexander-Arnold, a lot of Liverpool's play goes through him. And that's probably why they both actually create more chances than Kerkez and Frimpong have been. So if you look, Robertson's 1.5 per 90, Alexander-Arnold 2 per 90, Kerkez is only 1 per 90, and then Frimpong 1.2. But you have to remember these are teams that don't have as many shots in the game as Liverpool do. So there is probably more opportunity for Robertson and Alexander-Arnold to create chances, and they're getting on the ball more. What is interesting is where Kerkez and Frimpong both have more of than Robertson and Alexander-Arnold respectively is crosses. They both put in more crosses and they dribble with the ball more. They both run with the ball more. Alexander-Arnold's, his carry numbers are above Frimpong, but I would say if you look at how close the distance is per 90, it's only because Alexander-Arnold has more touches. So we're talking 87 touches, Frimpong 50 per 90. So that's 37 more touches. So he has more opportunity to actually run with the ball. So if you actually do it per touch, Frimpong is above Trent for carries per touch, basically, if you want to put it that way. Then the other thing is the defensive numbers at the bottom. So I've done tackles, interceptions, and possession one, which is basically picking up your loose balls. Trent does a lot more of the defensive stuff than Frimpong, is what you gather from the right back part of that. So he's at 2.7 tackles per 90, Frimpong 1.3, 1.2 when interception per 90 versus Frimpong's 0.3, wins possession 5 times per 90. Jeremie Frimpong 3.3. So Frimpong's a lot lower on those defensive metrics, which harks back to the touch map we showed earlier, where he's not doing a lot in his own defensive third. Robertson and Kerkez, it's a little bit closer. Like Robertson's marginally more on tackles, 1.5 to 1.4, but then he's less than Kerkez on interceptions and possession one. So Kerkez is probably reading the game a little bit better than Robertson. And it's possibly also a symptom of the fact Kerkez, Bournemouth will do a lot more defending in games than Liverpool will. So he has more opportunities to defend. But also he has a problem. So he's 21, isn't he? And Robertson's in his 30s now. So I think it's fair to say Kerkez is almost, I would say, a 21-year-old version of Andy Robertson, where he's got the legs that Robertson no longer has. So that's why he's probably able to make more interceptions and win possession more times. He's got the legs to do it. But yeah, it is interesting that they're both higher on the crosses and dribbles, but lower on the chances created. But hopefully I've explained that in terms of Liverpool actually creating more chances generally. So it will be interesting if Kerkez and Frimpong were to join Liverpool, would their chance creation numbers increase to the levels that we're seeing there from Robertson and Alexander-Arnold? That's what I'd expect, to be honest. Maybe not. Frimpong might not get quite as high as Alexander-Arnold because his numbers are very high, and they always have been for chances created as a fullback. So Frimpong, like I say, I think it might be more getting the most out of Salah and letting Salah create more chances. But if he can sort of increase his numbers from that 1.2, that's where you'd sort of be looking at that you want him to do. So yeah, just an interesting little comparison there. I don't know what stands out to you, Mick, in terms of those numbers as well.
For me, when I first glanced at it, when you sent it over, was the carry distance, which I thought for Kerkez, which is basically 20 meters there, isn't it? Which is a fair old chunk. And I think for sometimes Robbo these days, when he gets in a little bit of trouble, he's more likely just to kind of hoof it down the line and hope Diaz can do something with it. But if you've got someone, and it looks like Frimpong's similar with the 134 there, you want someone to be able to dribble out of problems and make solutions by running with it. Because sometimes the best option is just take players on and run into the space rather than playing a tricky pass inside into areas where it's dead congested against teams that are low block or whatever, or the pressing high like an Arsenal, where you need someone who's going to be able to go, well, I'll take you on, I'll run into the space and I'll be able to create something from that. So that releases a lot of pressure. You think the first person that springs to mind, like, who was so good at that was Joel Matip. He was like, absolutely. Well, I'm in loads of trouble here, lads, but fuck it, I'm going to run 60 yards and bail us out of it. But yeah, I think like you said, the interceptions is interesting as well. But like you said, I think that comes down to age and agility and speed, which, like you said, Robbo was in his 30s now. But if you can have someone who can be that Robbo that was when he first joined the club and is so energetic up and down, putting tackles in. Because I think what you see with Robbo these days is he's always half a second late to those like 50-50s, or when he thinks he's going to nick it in his head, he's like, I've got this, but then his head and his body aren't quite aligned in the same way that they used to be because of age.
Yeah, I'd sort of say in his head, is he still the 27-year-old Robertson, but his legs are the 30-year-old Robertson. And it's just that it's only that half a yard, but I think he's sort of second guessing himself into like, can I get to that ball, or should I drop? But then if you have that half second of deciding, in that half second, the Premier League footballer is probably going to beat you to it now, and he's going to go past you, because you've either got to be committed to dropping back or be committed to getting the ball. And I think at the minute, I mean, he'll know best. Slot will know better about what's really going on than me and you will. But I think he's just second guessing himself just that little bit. He's just coming to terms with the fact he's lost that half a yard of pace. So that's probably a symptom. Those stats there you saw, possibly a symptom of that, definitely.
Yeah, on a very small scale, I can attest to that because when you play 5-a-side or 7-a-side now, the brain's like, I can do this, this, and this, and then your feet and your body are like, nah.
The hamstring's not going to get there.
Just play a 5-yard pass, lads. Just play a 5-yard pass. Don't be messing around with 1-2s. You're not going to make it into the space in time. So it's little things like that that obviously age, it doesn't wait for anyone, and it has an effect on the body and stuff. There's only machines and freaks like Salah and Van Dijk who just obviously decline slowly, but you don't really notice it. It's negligible. But with like most players, you can notice it, and I think we've unfortunately seen that with Robbo over the last season. But in terms of having him around the squad and having him as a backup to whoever's going to come in, whether that's Kerkez or someone else, that experience and stuff, you can't buy that. So it's worth keeping him around just for that. And obviously still a good player as well, by the way. It's not like he's fell off a cliff like Fabinho style. He's still decent enough to play for Liverpool Football Club. So do you want to talk about Wirtz now, or do you want to talk about Salah now? Should we leave Salah for the end?
Yeah, leave Salah. We'll do Wirtz for now. Carry on with the incoming potential.
Let's go for it. And Wirtz is obviously another one, Florian Wirtz, or Flirts as Cara calls him. 126 million it's been touted, which is a lot of money, but the fact that when you think about it more, Salah signed for 2 more years, Van Dijk signed for 2 more years, it looks like we're probably going to have a load of players leaving. Like I mentioned earlier, Keller's probably going to leave. You've got Simicast probably. You've got Nunes. And then Elliott as well, it looks like, probably, in terms of what he said after post-match Brighton, where that was like the first time, we've just been talking about it before we started recording, it was the first time that he said, or he's not said, oh, I'm going to stay for my position or fight for my place. It was the first time he's kind of said, I need to do what's best for my career and stuff. And I thought that was resounding, that it looks like it'll be sad if Sunday's his last game, because he's one of them that he's always fought for the shirt. And even though he's not a local lad, he's a boyhood fan, and he's wanted to come to the club for his whole life, and he would stay probably his whole life if he could. But it's one of them where maybe he just doesn't quite fit into certain bits of what Slot might want to do in the future. And I guess Wirtz kind of fits into that, because if Elliott's the backup to Szoboszlai, if you like, and then we sign Wirtz, like Elliott's never getting a look in. Do you know what I mean? If we buy a fella for 126 million, he's going to probably be starting most games. But yeah, what are your thoughts on the Wirtz stuff? Because I've again, I don't want to sit here and pretend like I've watched them for 4 years and I know every his game inside out. But I've seen the clips, I saw the reels, and he looks very, very good, doesn't he? And it's something that I guess price wise, you look at it and you go, that's not a Liverpool signing. But I guess in terms of like a Marquee signing where you're putting a marker down to go back and retain the Premier League title and try and win Champions Leagues, I'd say it'd be a massive marker, wouldn't it? I think.
Yeah, well, it's one of them signings where it's such huge money. I'm sort of, Liverpool have never gone this sort of high on a bid for a player, so it's one of those where I'm sceptical. And I'm sort of wondering whether Leverkusen are more using us as a way to try and persuade Bayern to pay a bit more money, and saying, I think they're basically desperate for him not to go to Bayern Munich, because Bayern Munich basically have done that for decades now, and they just poach all the best players from their rivals in Germany. And I think those clubs are sick of it, to be honest, losing players to Bayern Munich. So I think they'd happily actually let him go for less money to a different country than a bit more money and stay with Bayern. So I sort of suspect, I don't know, I'm not saying I'm any sort of in the know or anything, but I sort of suspect we are getting used. But I think we're quite happy to be used, because if there is a deal to be done on him, we'd be like, absolutely, yes, this is a guy who, well, he is one of the most exciting young players in the world. He's 22 years old. We're talking about a guy with 30 goal involvements this season, 37 the season before, all competitions. So we've had 2 consecutive seasons of 30 goal involvements. He can score, he can assist. I'm convinced that the money is there, because ultimately we bid 110 million for Caicedo 2 years ago, and since then we've made profit on transfers and we've got back in the Champions League. So I think the money's there. I don't think that's actually the issue here. I think the issue is, are we willing to pay more than Bayern or wages that compete with Bayern? That's more the issue. So I think the money's there. I'm not convinced he's actually going to be used as a midfielder. I sort of have a feeling Slot's going to go down the Bobby Firmino false 9 route with him, if it was to be him. Because I can't see us then to sign that striker. You're talking another 60, 70, 80 million plus to get a striker of the level we'd require. Yeah. Are we capable of buying Wirtz for 120 odd million and then a striker for that kind of money on top of Frimpong, on top of Kerkez, a possible midfielder or a possible centre back? There's a lot of work there. Are we going to? It would not surprise me if Wirtz was going to be like a false 9 with Szoboszlai. We've seen this season, we've basically always played a 4-2-4. McAllister and Gravenberch, the deeper midfielders. And Szoboszlai effectively is up there with whether it was Diaz up front or Jota up front or whoever. He was effectively up there with him. I almost wonder if it'll be Gakpo and Diaz on the left and then it'll be a Wirtz and Szoboszlai as almost like a double false 9 front 2. And that's what I sort of have in my head. I don't know whether I'm right there. Whether we ever find out. And we saw
that with Szoboszlai and Jones, though, haven't we, in games where they're playing like a double
City
9
away
or whatever.
Yeah. Man City away, it happened. Wirtz is obviously just a level above in terms of Szoboszlai's done well on goal involvements this season, but Wirtz is, probably more like double his sort of level of contribution in terms of goals and assists. And he's only 22. So Szoboszlai's only young as well, but yeah, it's one of those players where you only have to look at the clubs who are interested in him to know how good he is, to be honest. That's, the fact that Bayern want him, the fact that Madrid have been linked over the years, the fact that Man City have been wanting him for years. That we're talking about the best clubs in Europe want this guy. So that should tell you all you need to know about how good he is. Poor Bayern Leverkusen, by the way, possibly losing. They've lost Alonso, probably going to lose Frimpong. And now Wirtz is getting poached as well. So they're getting absolutely sort of pillaged by us as well, but then Real Madrid and Bayern Munich coming for their players, so you got to feel for them as well. But yeah, it's an interesting one.
Well, we've had our years being pillaged, so I'm happy to be pillaging other clubs, to be honest. So I'll absolutely take it. But yeah, I think it's an interesting one because he can play as a 10, or I am more inclined to think that he will probably be as a Firmino-esque style, because then I guess you allow him to come inside. He's gonna do the dirty work, but he's got the ability to get on the ball and make stuff happen, score goals, create stuff. Like you said, his goal contributions speak for themselves. Like, just having a look there, like nearly 30 casts for Germany already, and he's only just turned 22. So that says all you need to know about like in an area in a German squad that's really strong with loads of good players in there. He's one of them. But yeah, I think it's definitely an interesting one, and that one's obviously nowhere. I think we've done it in the right order. Frimpong's done. Kerkez is probably, I've no idea, but Wirtz, I would say, it's just basically paper talk at the minute and rumours on Twitter and stuff. But it is one that if that does looks more likely, then that is going to be very, very exciting for next season, when, like I said, we've signed one player and we won the Premier League. So, but then we have got a lot of surgery to do. Like we said, there's players going to be leaving, and we need to fill those gaps in the best way. So I think when you do that, it's always a risk in it, because you don't know how players are going to adapt to the league and all that stuff. So it's one of them where, fingers crossed, we get a few players over the line and they can be absolutely boss. But one player that isn't new and will never be new, because he's so amazing and he's so good. We have to talk about him every single time. I might as well just put like a Salah segment over the top of this, because we always have to have a Salah segment. But it's not for we're going to talk about how good he is, obviously, and how good the season was. But again, how not disappointing, but like just a bit. I feel a bit crestfallen about like the last couple of games, and where he obviously forced. The interview pre-Brighton with Slot was funny, because he was like, "What?" Like, I think Carragher asked him like Salah starting. He was like, "Well, he was going to knock on my door if I didn't put him in, so I've got to," basically. But yeah, I've got it. You sent me over his goals and let me get rid of that logo. There we go. His goals and assists this season. We can see how tantalisingly close he is to these records. But again, shows just how incredible he is. The only players ahead of him are players that played in seasons where there was more games. I think that says it all, doesn't it?
Yeah, exactly. They had 4 more games, and they both actually played 40 or more games those seasons, Cole and Shearer. So Cole 93, 94, Shearer 94, 95. They both got 47. Weird how they match as well, 34 goals, 13 assists, so both the exact same record. But so they had more games, and Salah's got the 38-game season record of 46, so he's overtaken Henry 0203 and Haaland 22-23, both on 44. So he needs that one goal of moment to equal. I think he wants to break it. I think he wants to. And yeah, you can see it's in his head. Like with Slot saying, I couldn't drop him because he wants a record. But equally, he's playing a weakened team around him, so he's probably made it a bit harder for him to get that record by resting players and bringing new players in. But yeah, this in his last 8 games in the Premier League, he's got 1 goal and 1 assist. So 8 games ago, he was level with Henry and Haaland and only 3 away with 9 games to play. And now we're looking with 1 game to go, and we're not sure if he's going to get the record now. So in those 8 games, he's had 21 shots and created 18 chances, and then only has 1 goal, 1 assist. So I think it's almost luck running out kind of thing, where some of the chances he's missed have been pretty bad, to be fair. The Leicester one pretty early on where he hit the post, I think a few weeks ago he'd have scored that. And then last night he missed, Monday night, missed an open net against Brighton, didn't he? So it's in his head. It is clearly in his head that, he wants to record. He laid on an amazing pass against Arsenal for Luis Diaz. Diaz was basically put it either side of Raya. It was a goal and he misses it. And Salah was frustrated by that. I think he mentioned it in his interview with Neville that he was good that didn't go in because he is going for that record. So it's clearly in his head, and that's not helping him because he's probably overthinking things like, how am I going to get a goal here? How am I going to get an assist here? Whereas for the season before that, he was just being natural, and it was the goals and assists were just coming because he was just being his own self. Whereas now he's possibly overthinking it. So he's going to have that problem again on Sunday, ultimately, where it'd be a party atmosphere against Crystal Palace because there's 2 teams who both won a trophy and both very excited about how their seasons have gone. But he still has a record to break. So I do really want him to get there, and I'll be working it at the weekend. I want to be tweeting on Opta Joe about him getting the record. I'm desperate for that to happen. So hopefully Crystal Palace are sort of on the beach enough to make it as easy as possible for him.
Yeah, it's one of them. Like, just going to bring up, obviously, we just saw the goals, but here's the assists, and let me just get rid of that banner because you can. De Bruyne is just basically taking the piss. Basically, he's in there. He's in there 4 times. Yeah. And like you said, it's just I just feel a bit sad because like it was a few weeks ago. Like it wasn't a question he was going to break these records. It was like he's definitely going to break these records, and obviously league's done. And this is getting played in weakened teams, so it's not quite the same synergy in certain areas that he needs.
Yeah, I think the fact that we've wrapped up the league's hurt him because suddenly the whole team around him is putting that 5% less effort in, and so I think the fact that we've won the league early has hindered his chances, which is gutting, really. But in that respect, but obviously we're not disappointed to win the league early. If you offered me to win it early again next season, I'll absolutely take it. But I think it sort of hurt his chances. But you can see there 2 assists away from Henry or 203. So he'd also match Henry and been one of only 2 players to get 20 goals and 20 assists in the same season. And the other player with 20 assists was Kevin De Bruyne in 2019-20. So that's who he's. If he gets 1 assist at the weekend, he's beaten Frank Lampard's best season. He's beaten Cesc Fabregas's best season. Sort of 2 of the most creative players the Premier League's seen. So he's still getting assist numbers that are frighteningly good. Especially to say there hasn't really been another regular goal scorer in the Liverpool team. Gakpo's had a great record at Anfield, but he was injured for a couple of months. Diaz is a second top scorer and he's done well, but he can often go quite long periods without a goal. So there's not been like a Mane type figure in this team where he can set up regularly because he'll score regularly. So it makes it even more amazing that he's got so many assists, 18 assists in the Premier League, 23 in all competitions. So, yeah, it shouldn't be overlooked how amazing that record is, even if he doesn't get another one at the weekend. But yeah, I think he wants records, doesn't he, as much as we want him to get them. So we'll see if he can get 2 at the weekend.
Yeah, I'm just praying, like, because Palace have obviously going to be on the beach, and so we've been on the beach for the last month. So
yeah,
I'm hoping it's going to be like a 6-5, 7-6, 8-7 type game. Salah gets 3 assists and a couple of goals as well.
Yeah, I mean that would be perfect, wouldn't it? But although I am working, so I also want to be not too busy. So not as easy as possible, please, Mo.
Yeah, I know. I just think even if he, like you said, even if he doesn't get any, like it's still like to get 18 assists and be above the likes of Cesc Fabregas and level with De Bruyne and stuff like that. For a player who's been, I guess, called, well, I guess in his earlier days, called greedy, and obviously his creative outlets I think his creative ability's always been there, but it comes to the forefront a bit more because he's got that side of the game and he's allowed to adapt into his game because of, like you said, the pace dwindles naturally as you get a bit older, but he's got the ability to play balls into areas that can really hit. I was just thinking the one against City where he plays it on a play for Gakpo at the back post, and like Carragher like brought that up on the pre-Brighton game, like analysis, and when you freeze it and you're like, how has he like even thought about that pass, like just to get it through that gap with speed, and he's put it on a play for him, and that's the type of he is literally a genius. But fingers crossed we can do the business, win the game, lift the trophy, but Salah can get us 2 assists at least, just so we can join Andy.
At the end of the game, he's going to get the golden boot and the playmaker reward because he's that far ahead for goals and assists of anyone else. I think Isak would have to score 5 to level him. So that's, I mean, I know they're playing Everton, who were probably a bit on the beach as well, but be surprised if he got 5.
And he missed last game, didn't he? So I think he might be out as well. So.
So and I think he's 5 ahead on assists as well, if memory serves me right. So he's almost certainly going to get the golden boot and the playmaker award, which is the second time he's done that, by the way. He did it in 21-22, so that was 3 years ago, and he wasn't greedy then either. And the other thing on the greedy term that gets thrown at him, he's only had 1 season where he hasn't got 10 assists in a season for Liverpool.
Yeah.
So we're still talking about a guy who gets double figures for assists so regularly. I think now he's just even more creative than he ever has been. So, yeah, let's touch wood on Sunday. It goes well for him, and we can have a real party atmosphere, not just winning the league, but Salah's got the records as well.
Yeah, fingers crossed, because obviously you said it's been on his mind. So a happy Mo Salah, and then getting the records that he so craves, and then getting his hands on the Premier League trophy for the second time, but in front of the crowd this time is going to be absolutely. Exactly. It's going to be magical, isn't it? But lads, that's probably the longest stat show ever. So we will get out of here. Plenty to get through there. Nice one for jumping on, lad. Really appreciate you jumping on as always.
Cheers for having me on.
No worries, lad. Yeah, we'll leave it there. Nice one for watching or listening, however you're consuming the Cop Eye podcast. Go and get one of the mugs, like I said, start of the show. Go and get yourself one of these little beauties. I'm just wondering how many Jaegers I can fit in this. Like, I'm sure, probably quite a few. We'll see at the weekend. I'll let you know
on Sunday. Yeah,
on Sunday. Yeah. Well, I'm off. I'm off Friday till Wednesday, so I've got plenty of time to do the experiment. So I'll let you know. Yeah, nice one, Mike, for jumping on. Nice one, everyone, for watching or listening, and we'll see you all next time. Ta-ra.